I know several people personally. These guys don't know each other, and they tell a very similar story. And some of them, they were not alone. They were with other people. They were hitchhiking, and it started to rain. Yeah, or the weather got bad, so they were looking for cover for a while. Yeah, they're out and on reservations. Sometimes there's places where there's a long stretch of land. There's the road. There's nobody out there. Yeah, there's just absolutely nobody out there. It's either a dirt road or gravel road, and it's not a busy road. Yeah, so but people still use it. Yeah, it's just that they don't use it all that often, and sometimes it's shorter to walk, between communities by taking these roads. So that's why they take them. Yeah, and it's on the res. So it's not like they're leaving the reservation. Yeah, it's still inside the reservation. And one is on Rosebud. For those of you that are familiar with the Rosebud Sioux Reservation, on the northeast part of the res, there's a little tiny town called Belvedere. And or should maybe I have that confused with Norris. Maybe it's Norris. Okay, anyway, you go south from that town and it's a gravel road. Yeah? And it's long. It's really a winding road. Now, there's a couple of ranches out there, but they're far apart from each other. It's actually beautiful country. Yeah, it's really nice. And most of it though it is gravel road. Last time I was on there was in 2001. No, 2000. Maybe it's paved now, but I kind of doubt it. And because I've been on that road quite a bit, since I was a little kid up until, being in my 40s. So I know that road really good. I'm not from there, but my dad is from there, and my father's side of the family is from Rosebud. They're Sicangu, Lakota. And so we used to go down there for Rosebud powwow or to go visit my grandpa and other people down there that I'm related to. Okay. Anyway, south of this, on this dirt road, I'm pretty sure it's Norris. I should look at a map. I'm really confused now. I know the name Belvedere and I know the name Norris, and I know they both lead to two different areas, so I might have this mixed up. If anybody from that one of those reservations, you're probably thinking, hey, what's that guy talking about anyway? Let me go to Google Map. I want to find out about this right away. Hang on a second. The road, it comes into Parmalee, okay? It ends up in Parmalee, South Dakota. Okay. Google Maps, Rosebud Reservation, righties. That still looks like a gravel road, dirt road. Okay. All right. Where are they? Where do they have Parmalee? Okay, Highway 63. Okay. And going north. Going north, and gee, this is a long road. Yeah, that is true. Turning there. Yep, I remember that. And then coming up, it's north. Okay. Gee, that's a long road. I'm looking at it on Google Maps, and it gets windy. Yeah, the road really winds. And I remember, being on this road and singing that Beatles song. Yeah, a long and winding road. Because that's what it's like. There's nothing. There's nothing out there. Just a few farms, just very few farms. ranches, I mean, out there. Then coming in, He Dog Elementary School. And then into Parmalee. Yep. I, gee, it's been a long time since I've been through there. Oh. Yeah. But it's pretty, yeah. It's really pretty country. Very beautiful. And anyway, on this road, my dad and one of his cousins were walking on this road. They were coming back from Norris, I think, and I see it right now. The winding curve that he's talking about. There's a old house there that was it was probably put up, like around when the first immigrants came to South Dakota, and this house is really old, and it's abandoned. I think the tribe took it back or something. I don't know, but it's not livable. Yeah, so it started to rain, and it was nighttime, and it's kind of dangerous out there. Yeah, there might be some coyotes, and you don't want to take a chance with a coyote that has rabies. Yeah, it's not a good sight to see. I've seen that one time. Luckily, I was in the car. The coyote was just walking right in the middle of the highway, and he had rabies. Yeah, this stuff dripping out of its mouth. Normally, coyotes, they don't attack people, but if it has rabies, it's crazy. Yeah, so it'll attack anything. So you don't want to be out there like that. And you don't know when it's nighttime. See, this is out in the country. There's no street lights out there. Yeah, there's just car headlights. That's it. And there's maybe 2-3 farms in this stretch of 50 miles or so. No joke. That's about 50-60 miles. And that's about like 80-90 kilometers. Just nothing out there. Just a skinny gravel road. Yeah. And it's really windy and just twists and turns. And there are no signs out there. There are no, remember how when you're driving and when the road's going to curve, there's a sign that comes up saying, curve ahead. This road doesn't have those signs. So you have to know the road really good or just drive slow. So they were walking out there. This is a reservation highway, so it's not like, they're required by law to have these signs. Okay? So nobody was driving. It started to rain, and the thunder was getting kind of close to the ground, and it's really loud when you're out in the prairie. Yeah, so they saw this farmhouse, this really old farmhouse. So they went over there, and they decided to just spend the night there, and then wait till sunlight comes. Even if it's still raining, at least they can see. Yeah. So they decided to spend the night there. So they were just sitting there, and they were smoking cigarettes, and they made a small fire. Yeah, and they found an old coffee can, and were able to dry some weeds and make a small fire for a little while. Then they were going to go to sleep. So they were sitting in there, and here one of the guys said, he went, "You smell that?" And my dad said, "Yeah. Somebody's here." They said. So my dad said, "But just be quiet." He said, Let's just stand still. Don't move." He said, "They're going to hear us." I said, "Let's see who it is." Let's just really, let's just sit here and listen, and maybe we recognize who it is, because a lot of people hitchhike on this road. Yeah, they didn't want to take any chances though. So because it might be somebody they don't know, so they just were quiet, and they said, "It smells like he's cooking something." Yeah, smells like lard and bacon lard, pork, this pork fat. 'Cause it really smells good, yeah. And then I heard, like that, and it's like there's they smelled like potatoes, fried potatoes. I said, "Geez, it smelled good." So, so let's peek. Let's follow the smell and see who it is. They were tiptoeing around this house. It's really a big house, yeah. Because I've driven by it. It's a 2-level house, and it's really really big. So especially for the early 1900s, so probably a big family lived out there a long time ago. So they were looking around. No light, and they couldn't find any light. They were, eventually the smell faded out, and they just smelled the rain outside. And then my dad said, "Just stand still. Maybe they know we're here." So they turned off their what do you call it? Just listen. Maybe you hear them eating. I didn't hear anything. Yeah. So they decided to just stay in that one place where they were at until the sun came up. And the sun came up. You see, they were awake the whole time, and they didn't hear anybody walking around. So they searched through the whole house, and they found nothing. They found the kitchen area, the stove, nothing. There was no sign that a fire was made. There were no potato peelings anywhere. There was nothing there that indicated somebody was cooking anything. They checked everywhere and nobody was there. Not a trace. There were no footsteps leading out of the house because it was muddy. Yeah, there was nothing. And they couldn't even smell any trace of the food either. There were no potato peelings anywhere, no wrappers, no trash, nothing. Just abandoned house. Yeah, so my dad and his friend were like, next time, let's find a different house. And they got the hell out of there really quick, yeah. Even though it was morning time, they got out of there. There was nobody there. There's nothing there. Yeah, and they continued telling that story to other people. It's interesting, yeah. Another one, Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe, southwest part of the res near Cherry Creek, South Dakota. East part of Cherry Creek, on the Cherry Creek Road leading from the Pier Highway. That's highway, 65, or is that 63? I can't remember these highway numbers. It's leading south from Eagle Butte, and you're going to Pier, South Dakota. There's a road going south. And I don't know, maybe about 20 or so miles down the road, there's a road that breaks off. It's another highway that breaks off, and it goes to the west, and that's heading to Indian town called Cherry Creek, South Dakota. That highway still goes further south, though, yeah. But this is a different highway that branches off, and that's the right word. It branches off. Very beautiful country. There's Cheyenne River goes through there, yeah. And this is how do you say that? Strategically, this is a really good location to live because it's low. And if you're up on top, you see, if you're up on top and you look around, you have no clue that there's a river that's down underneath. You have no clue. Yeah, that's why it's really good strategically. So there's this town called Cherry Creek. That town is several hundred years old. Even before white people came, there was always people living there because of the strategic position. So they would post guards up on top. Yeah. So if Crow Indians start coming around, They signal so they know they're coming, so they can be ready for them and surprise them. That's really a strategic area. Yeah, so that's why it's an old town. It's a lot of history in that town. People don't realize that. Before you get to Cherry Creek, when you're following that road, you see some old log cabins that were there since the early 1900s, yeah, maybe even the late 1800s. And this is where families lived. It's really a beautiful area. Yeah, it's a fantastic place to have a log cabin. You have the river right there. You can go. You're always going to have fresh water. You can go and fish. Yeah, and there deer come in that area, so you can hunt deer from time to time. You really have it made there, because it's really pretty. You ride horses down there and all kinds of things. Yeah, it's really a pretty area. Anyway, there's old log cabins here and there, and my sister-in-law, her and her father, they were coming back from Eagle Butte, and they were hitchhiking, and a car took them from Eagle Butte. They caught a ride to the junction that where this road joins this pier road that I was talking about. And then from that junction, it's about 25 miles, I think. Oh, no, 15 miles, 18 miles to get to Cherry Creek. And it's doable, walking, yeah? And it's pretty country, too. And there's people driving on that road, so they would catch a ride, yeah? So they were walking on that road, and it started to rain. And so they said, let's go stop at this so-and-so's, because everybody knows everybody, and so they went to one of these log cabins where an old woman that they used to know, she died a long time ago. My sister-in-law was a little girl when this woman died. This woman was like in her 80s when she died. And like I said, my sister-in-law was a little girl when that happened. Now, my sister-in-law was like in her 21 years old, and so that meant about 20 years had passed since this woman died, this old lady. Okay. So they went to stop in at this log cabin, and these are really kind of traditional thinking people. Yeah. So my sister-in-law, she made a what do you call it? She kind of said a prayer, saying, in Lakota, because they speak Lakota, and she said, kind of before they went into the house, my sister-in-law said a kind of prayer and saying, please forgive us, Grandma, but we need some place to sleep. So I hope it's okay. You let us sleep here, she said. And then they went inside. Yeah, so real traditional people. They act. This is how they are. They see things like this. So they went inside and they were visiting for a little bit, and then they were going to go to sleep. And here, same thing. Yeah, they heard noises. So my sister-in-law woke her father up, and she said, Dad, listen. All in Lakota, I asked. She said, listen. Somebody's here. How can that be? It's a one-room log cabin, yeah. And they heard the noises coming from the other side of the thing, and the father kind of got a little bit scared. But see, these are traditional thinking people, okay? So right away, my sister-in-law said, "It must be Grandma." She said, "Just be still. See what she does. If she's angry, then we'll leave." She said. So maybe if she makes a lot of noise, that means she doesn't want us here. So we'll go. And next thing you heard this like grease frying. And then it's like, And then my sister-in-law said, "Listen, I think she's cooking." And they started to smell this, the lard cooking, yeah. And then they start smelling the again fried potatoes and onions. They could smell that, but there was nothing there. There was no fire. There was no smoke. Yeah, and the sun was starting to come up now, and then the smell was there for a little while, and my sister-in-law said, "Gee, that's interesting." She said, "Yeah," and so when they got their things ready, she said, "Thank you, Grandma." She said, "I'll see you sometime." She said, and then they left. Do you see the common themes here? Yeah, it's really interesting how that this experience, and there was nobody there, but the smell was there. They smelled this food. How does that happen? How do you explain that? They should get these so-called unsolved mysteries people down there and check these things out. Now I bet anybody out there listening, things like this. Maybe you've heard things like this. Maybe you've heard stories like this. See, what my sister-in-law did was she made an offering before she left. She made an offering, and she thanked the grandma who used to live there. And then they left. Yeah, that's the traditional way of doing that. Yeah. My dad and them, they just hightailed it out of there, because they didn't know who lives there. Yeah, they didn't know, what family lived there before. But in my sister-in-law's case, see, this was one of her grandmothers that lived there, and she feels that this was her way of letting them know that she's watching over them. Yeah, so don't worry, don't be scared. I'm watching over you. That's the way my sister-in-law explained it, which is really a nice way to look at it. Yeah, so there wasn't even anything scary about it. And I asked her, I said, "Weren't you scared?" And she said, "Geez, I was really scared." She said, "I really had to go bathroom, but I just held it the whole time." She said, and she just tried to keep her wits about her the whole time. Yeah. So it's really interesting, these kind of things. Yeah. What could that be? Yeah. What could that be? What does Lakota Star Knowledge say about that? There's a number of things that are going on that we're not aware of. And we are a part of that transaction that's happening. Okay? Lakota Star Knowledge, for one thing, says that reality begins within. Yeah? Everything in reality begins within each one of us. So we're creating a total cumulative reality where, whatever we communicate affects everything around us. And that returns to us 4 times as strong. So it not only affects everything around us, but everything inside of us when it returns. Yeah. And when we communicate, when we're doing, see, communication is not just talking; it's also listening, and it's how you do something. When you sit down on a couch, that's communicating. Your butt's talking to the couch. Yeah, look out! Here I come. Hey. No, your activity of doing that is telling people something. You're tired, or you just want to sit down. You're here to stay, so we can't get rid of you. Depends on the person, yeah. But it's telling you something. It's a communication. So how you communicate is it does affect everything around, yeah. Now, sometimes when there's a person who is very spiritual, somebody who really loves people. Sometimes there's people who they're naturally this way, and they're this way their whole lives, and so they lead when we, as we're living our lives, sometimes we go through experiences where we're highly emotional. Whatever that emotion is, whether we're in a big old fight or, whether we found out some bad news and all of a sudden everybody's bawling their heads off, or somebody's house burned down, so we're all scared, or maybe something really wonderful happened and we're all really, really excited and happy. That event, whatever that is, it could be any of those emotions, but if it's strong enough, it will leave a residue behind in that location. Like, say, a massacre site. When a holy person has not been there to neutralize the energy that was left from that massacre, that residue is still there. And it's like a looped recording that goes over and over and over, and people mistake that for a ghost. They think that's a ghost, and really it's not. It's the residue of the act that happened, that they were scared, they didn't know what to do, that everything happened so fast, and it was horrible the way they were killing, whatever massacre it is. No massacre is good, yeah? And so all this, the way the people were feeling as they're being murdered, that leaves an energy behind. Likewise, those that were committing that massacre, maybe they were filled with just strong hatred. That's still there too. Now, when you look at something, for example, like that Wounded Knee massacre that happened in 1890 at Wounded Knee Creek, this happened on the Pine Ridge Reservation, but these Lakota people were not from Pine Ridge. So all you Europeans, get that through your head. If you visit the Wounded Knee massacre site, those Lakota people are not from Pine Ridge. They are not Oglala Lakota people. Yeah? They're Hohwoju from Cheyenne River, Hunkpapa from Standing Rock, and Sicangu from Rosebud and Lower Brew. But they're not Oglala. Okay? When this massacre happened, there were medicine men who went there to try to neutralize it, because people were hearing things out there. They were hearing crying and things like that. So they hopefully, that this got taken care of. It's a looped recording, is what it really is. So they have to go out there and neutralize that energy, so they don't hear it anymore. So it's neutral. Yeah, the energy is neutral. It dissipates. It's gone. So you don't hear it anymore. You don't see it anymore. But what about the soldiers who committed it? What about them? They left the energy there too. They were full of hatred. See, that has to be neutralized too. And I don't know if you're aware of that. Yeah, for those of you who know this, who know that, that happened. That you can't just neutralize the what do you call it? You have to neutralize the other side too. Because if you just let it go, you are being dualistic. You're combining things into good versus evil. And that's not the way of the ancestors. Yeah? So that's why I always say you honor those who fall in the massacre, but you pray for those who committed that massacre, because they need it. At the time, most likely, they were controlled by their emotion. and that causes somebody to lose clarity. It's not because they're white. Yeah, and because if you focus on that, you're going to become a racist, and that's still dualistic, and that's not fixing the problem. Yeah, the sun shines on everybody. It doesn't just shine on Lakota people. Yeah, and we all breathe the same air. We all drink the same water. We all need the sun. We need to breathe. Yeah, we need to eat. We all eat the same kind of foods. We all have the same kind of blood type because we all bleed red. Yeah, Washichu babies and Indian babies, they speak the same language. It's because we're both the same species. We are human. We just have a different history, but that doesn't make us different people. Because reality begins within. Okay? Right. Let me get back on again. I veered off again. So when a person does, when there's an event that happens and there's a lot of emotion, that emotion leaves a residue in that area. And if it's strong enough, that residue can manifest itself as a sound or even as a sight, meaning it's something you can see. And that could be confusing to people. Yeah, they might misunderstand that. It might be scary. But it's just a residue. You have to go and neutralize it. Yeah, a holy person has to do that, to neutralize it, and then it's gone. They don't hear it anymore. Yeah. But sometimes there's people who are, like I said, they live very, very virtuous lives, like in their homes. You know, they enjoyed it when people came to visit them, and they enjoyed cooking for them. They enjoyed giving them a meal, send them on their way full, that they were happy and they had a good visit. Their medicine was in their cooking. Yeah? And that medicine went in the food. The person ate the food. They walked away feeling good. Everybody had a good time. And they were so into this that after they died, that residue was still there. And so that plays whenever somebody comes there to rest or whatever, then this residue kicks in. It still has the pattern of the person who lived there a long time ago, how that person was. Whenever somebody came, that person would say, come in, here's some coffee, have some water, sit down, I'm going to cook something for you. See, that pattern of communicating like that is still in that residue. So it shows up in this odor, or it shows up in a smell. Oh, that's the same thing, a smell, yeah? And sometimes people hear it. That's all coming from the residue that person left behind. And my sister-in-law knew that. That's why she said, thank you, Grandma, she said, when she left that log cabin with her dad. And she left the offering showing thanks. Yeah, she said, boy, it was really scary, she said, but at the same time, she felt good. Because she said, in a way, it was like the residue was saying, don't be scared. Yeah, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to watch over you. That's the way she interpreted it, which I thought was pretty cool. But see, she has traditional upbringing, so she knows these things. Anybody else probably would have freaked out, yeah? Anybody who doesn't have that knowledge, as soon as they smelled it, they would have hightailed it out of there, and especially if they didn't know, yeah? But see, my sister-in-law, this was her grandmother's place. One of her grandmothers lived there. And that's how the grandmother was. She was always happy to see anybody who came to visit. She always took food to people too, like places that, because remember what I said in the early 1900s, it was very poverty stricken all over the reservations, all reservations. So this grandmother, she lived alone. Her husband died when they were young, and she never remarried. So she really took children, she kept children in her mind. So when she had a little extra stuff, she would take it to a house she knew that there were kids that were hungry. So she would take food up there, whether it was bread or, some potatoes or whatever, and then she would cook for them so that they had something to eat. That's how she was. She always wanted to make sure the kids had something to eat. That's how she was. She really looked out for children. They weren't even her relatives, but the children need to eat. Yeah? So, this was her way of nurturing. Yeah? And plus she had a reputation of being a really good cook. That was her talent. And so see that residue stayed. Yeah, it stayed in that log cabin. And so there's other people who stopped in there too, that from a rainstorm or something like that, and a lot of them experienced the same thing, and some didn't understand, so they took off. Yeah, they got freaked out because they didn't have that upbringing. Yeah, so that's how it is. It's from the communication that they did, that's why you have to be mindful of your communication, because you may leave something behind that might cause somebody to hurt themselves because they misunderstood it. Do you see what I mean? So you must know what you're doing at all times. So strap yourself down when you go to sleep if you're a sleepwalker, yeah? Anyway, that's how that is. Yeah, so it's a residue that keeps going over and over, and it's like, as soon as somebody came into that house, this energy kicked in. Yeah, because it still had that pattern of the woman who lived there. That whenever somebody came, she was like, "Oh, come in, I'm gonna cook something for you," and it had that residue, that was her pattern. And so after she died, this is what she loved doing that. And that's what got left behind. So she's not there. Yeah? Her soul wasn't there. That was not her cooking. It was the energy she left behind. It manifested in what she loved to do. So people heard it, they smelled it. Yeah? Think about that for a while, okay? I'll leave that with you, and maybe you know some stories like that too. Yeah, maybe something like that has happened to you. Yeah, and how's that going to be in the future? Yeah, because everybody eats junk food these days, and oh gosh. Anyway, so that's the kind of should that be neutralized or not? That depends. Yeah, it really depends. It really depends. So it just every situation is different. Yeah, and remember, what I'm telling you here was something that was nice. So sometimes it's something that's not nice. For sure, that should be neutralized. Yeah, so that people don't end up, doing something bad to themselves because of it. Yeah, I'll let you think about that, okay?